Welcome back to the garage, guys. I'm Damien and this is the binder builder. Last video I showed you the coilover shocks that I got from a guy named Bobby in California, and I was able to get his coilover shocks. Well, today I'm going to show you what else I got from that bug, so check this out. Okay. I'm getting a little excited here. The next thing that I need to do once I get this suspension put together, the next step literally is to put the suspension on the pan and put the pan back to the bug body, and all the stuff that goes along with that. Because of that, when you're doing a bug like this, aftermarket brakes, I'm using 4-piston calipers front and back. The stock bug master cylinder just won't cut it. It doesn't push enough fluid to apply brakes like that. So one of the things I needed to do was to figure out a new brake system. Last year, my daughter and I drove out to California. We visited Evan LS55, Evan Smith. Some of you guys know him from Baja Society. Anyway, I took a look at his brake system. He had a nice Jamar setup in his bug, had 3 pedals and so forth. Took a look at CarTech while I was there. Took a look at those pedal systems. They're quite expensive. So I've been kind of keeping my eye out, looking for good deals and stuff like that. So when Bobby started parting out his bug, I actually took a good look at some of the stuff that he had, and guess what he had? Not exactly the same Jamar setup pedal assembly that Evan has, but he did have pedals. So I picked up this CNC system. This is for the this is a single master cylinder, and this will be for my clutch. Ooh, here we go. This is another CNC. This is a dual master cylinder. This is a brake pedal. So one of these master cylinders will go to the front. One of these will go to the rear. Whichever one is largest, obviously, will probably go to the rear because most of the weight is over the rear brakes. And so you want to have the most braking power. Of course, I've got 4-piston calipers going to everything, but chances are I'll probably be limiting the front brakes, which is really odd. In the 4-wheel drive world, most of your braking is done in the front and not so much in the back. But because the weight bias, this is what I'm told, because the weight bias on our bug so is displaced towards the back of the bug, technically you want your bigger brakes on the back, which is why I went with 4-piston calipers. So I've got some CNC brakes. Nice, 7/8. Oh, they're both 7/8, so they're both the exact same. Good enough. All right. And of course, he had a nice Jamar gas pedal. And so this is actually really nice. Spring loaded. You could dial it in exactly where you want it to be. There's the things. There's the pickups for the line. Nice. So obviously I got all of Bobby's pedals. And then the only other thing that I got from him, the last thing in this box, oh, it's heavy. Is a very heavy duty rack. And this one is supposed to be very heavy duty. Oh, nice. Very smooth. Oh, that's real nice. Okay, cool, cool. This is actually quite important to me this time around because as I set up the bulkhead, I need to know where to mount this. So one of the things that I'm working on is the reason why I needed to get a box or a steering rack in order to finish up my bulkhead is because I need to know where exactly to mount it, right? So here's my knuckle, and this is where the tie rod mounts to the knuckle, right? And there's measurements, so to speak, up and down. I want all of my links to be parallel. So as they move, everything moves together. And one of the reasons I wanted to make sure that I had my steering rack when I did the bulkhead was because if I mount it in the wrong position, it won't work with the A-arm suspension. So at least this is the way, this is the first time I'm ever doing this, but I'm trying to figure out in my head how it's going to work, why it's going to work, and I'm trying to build around that. So this is what I figured out. I might be wrong completely. Those guys, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. So anyway, if I make, like for example, if I mount my my steering rack way inboard, and so my tie rod is much longer than my links, right? If this is X and this is Y, my thought is this: if my control arms are this long, but my tie rod is that long, then this is going to be more of a broad radius that it makes as it goes through the travel is going to be much different than the one that the arms will make. You know, if I were to jump it over dunes or what have you, it goes from full droop where the knuckle will suck in more because of the arms than the steering link. It'll actually toe, it'll toe out as I'm in the air. And then as I hit the ground, it'll come back in. And then, you know, as I compress it out, it'll again go back out. And that'll just be a lot of bump steer. So don't want that. So as I'm setting up the bulkhead, this is one of the things that I am thinking about is where to put the steering rack. This is my upper and lower, and I have it way up here, but down here is where that is. That will make it longer as well because it's a hypotenuse thing, you know, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Anyway, so because that is longer, that will also affect it. So I'm trying to match my tie rod length to the arm length as much as possible. You know, if I can, in my perfect world, what I would do is, since these are 6 inches, right? Right? And so, and then this would be whatever that was. It was like 24 and a half or something like that. So basically, I want to see if I can get my steering rack in here such that it is also 24 and a half. And I also need to measure from the height from here to the middle of my, where the tie rod hits the knuckle to the thing, so that I can match that over here as well. So that way, all of my links, whether it be the tie rod, upper link, lower or upper arm, lower arm, all of them the same length, and they're all parallel. Anyway, probably looking at myself and as I'm editing this, thinking how big of an idiot I am. Similarly, if you will, the arms, right? So here's my knuckle with the brakes, right? Here's the frame end. So I got my, but anyway, so this comes, the tie rod mount comes off the knuckle, and so I need to be able to match that distance from there to there, from there to there. Because if I make it too big, or if I make it too long, if I put it way out here, again, that's just more length. It's a longer length from there, from out here or back here, than it would be if it was just straight. And that could also induce some bump steer. So there's a lot of things to consider, I guess. I'm trying to figure it all out. I'm not saying this is the right way of doing it. This is just some of the stuff I'm trying to keep track of in my head as I build this thing. Chances are I'm going to try to get as close as I possibly can, and then test it out. And as I test it out, I will be able to make adjustments. Similarly, like, I don't know if you guys saw the Baja Bug Builder when he did his steering. You know, he moved the pivot points quite a bit just to try to get as little bump steer as possible. That's exactly what I'm doing as well. I'd like to try to get as little bump steer as possible. So that's why I needed to make sure that I had a steering rack so that I could place it and make the adjustments needed. But anyway, hope that made sense. And with that, I mocked up my arms and started sizing up the rack placement to see where I should mount it. And I'm sorry to say that it was only then that I realized a big mistake I had made when purchasing my rack. So check this out. kind of a learning curve on this thing. So I'll move this over to the middle. So if I were to, as you can see, all of a sudden I'm having a hard time putting it in. It hangs too low, you know, with the rack part coming out of the bottom, it just goes too low. So I'm going to move it over to the side. As you can see, this is really low. So if I were to just get a straight edge of sorts, that is not parallel with my arms. If I were to take my tie rod and go into the to these heim holes here, it's not going to work for me. And the reason why, because that would be in a different arc than the actual A-arms are. So that was the first problem. I can't put it up any higher because that's where my bulkhead is. So technically I need another one with this, but off the front. Well, this is a wonderful rack. I checked online. I wasn't sure what it was, and it's actually called the Diablo Senior, or excuse me, the Devil Senior. Apparently, it's a really nice billet rack, very heavy duty, built for power steering, built for off-road use, extreme off-road use, and so I got a good rack. It just too big for my application, and unless I cut this stuff down, or maybe unless I have bigger knuckles at the end, and this would lift this up, and I could fit it up in there, but not so. So when I posted to find out what this was, one of the guys who replied that it was the Devil Senior, he asked me what I was going to do with it. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try to use it, but now that I've tried to use it and I know it's not going to work, there's definitely other options for me, right? So anyway, so it turns out he's a latest rage dealer, and apparently these are really nice racks. So he is going to get me kind of like a partial trade, so it actually works out. I'm going to be able to get my money back out of it. The latest rage has another one similar to this, very similar to it, but it's billet as well, heavy duty, extra wide, to be used for with the torque generators. But instead of it coming out the bottom, it comes out the front. So it's a front steer. So I'll be able to stick it in this little 4-inch gap that I have, and the greaser, instead of being up top where I can't get to it anymore, it comes out the bottom or something like that. It's a much easier place to get it to. Now these are perfect for, you know, beam cars, and that's what this came off of, is a beam car. And so someone had like a 6-over beam and, you know, fragile arms and all that other good stuff, and this works great for those. But for A-arms, because they're so tight in here, these particular kinds of racks aren't as good. So I guess it kind of worked out, because I do have a little bit of space in here, and so I've got 4 inches that I could work with. And what the plan will be is this upright. I could cut a hole in the upright for the steering joint to come through, and then it could go up to the steering column. And I could stick that sucker way in here, and then with it coming off the front, then it'll be the height and the distance forward to back I need for my tie rod. So it works out. I'm going to send him some money plus the rack, and bam, he's going to drop ship me the new steering rack. So, but sometimes it's one of those things, you know, you're starting over, building something, and kind of don't know what you're doing. You're just kind of working through it. This is one of the things you got to work through. So I was glad to find someone who wanted the rack. It happened to be a latest rage dealer. He was able to, you know, buy this for what I wanted, as well as sell me what I needed, you know, for not much more. So that actually is going to work out. This is a good lesson in what not to do, but it didn't cost me anything, which is a welcome change. Sometimes you think you went 2 steps forward and you actually took 2 steps back, but at the same time, get a lesson out of it. I know what I need now. I know how I'm going to set it up. It introduced me to some things that I wasn't familiar with before, and now I am. So hey, win-win. Anyway, before I wrap up this video, I'd like to cover one more thing about the rack, its placement, and so forth. Now, the only thing else I could really think of that you really need to know is the throw of the rack. Now, the throw can be anywhere from like, I don't know, 4 to 10 inches or whatever. I'm not that familiar with racks to know, but how do you find out how much throw you need for your particular vehicle? And to do that, I simply just measured the, basically where, I'll take my knuckle here, I just basically measured how far this traveled when I went from lock to lock. So this is me doing that. All right. I'm gonna go to full lock. I'm just gonna pick a spot. So I'm gonna call that 28 inches. It's actually 28 and an eighth. Okay, so 28 and an eighth. Probably shouldn't use that pen. And that's from my bulkhead. That's the 2x4. 28 and an eighth. We go to the other lock. Okay. Now it's 24 and 3/8. So that tells me a 4-inch rack will do. 4-inch travel, because that'll get me from lock to lock 4 inches. So straight should be, it's 28 minus 2, it's 26, and then look at that, 26 and a quarter. And yeah, so I'm going to do it this way. So boom, it's 24 and a half. I moved the way it grabs the arm, so it's 24 and a half. 28 and a half. See how that works? 24 and a half, 28 and a half. 4-inch ram will, or 4-inch rack will work perfect for me. So that is what I'm doing. And oddly enough, if you have this type of arm from Apple Tree or Cartech, you'll be able to use a 4-inch ram too. All right, well, that brings us to the end of this video. The key takeaways for me on this video was, 1, you want a center load front steer steering rack if you're building an A-arm suspension. If you're building a beam suspension, a center load bottom steer rack should do just fine. As far as the end load racks, I'm not 100% sure where I would use those. I imagine shorter buggies like a sand rail. The only other thing is when you're trying to find out how much throw you need in your rack, just basically mock up your arms and your knuckles and rotate them and just measure it. It's very simple. I just showed you how I did it, and yeah, if you do that, you should be good. But anyway, that's it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching along as I'm kind of going through this journey of building my first Baja Bug. And if you're not learning anything from this stuff, perhaps it's a little bit of entertainment as you watch me fumble through parts of this build. But that's it for this video. Please like and subscribe. And if you could do me a favor real quick and just put in the comments section front steer to let me know that you've made it this far in the video. I think that'd be cool. If you have any questions or comments, as always, leave them in the comments section and I will be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. But other than that, I'm Damien and this is the Binding.